Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another interesting edition of the Manila Standard on the Road. And tonight, I call on the Gen Xers, the Batang Gen X, and the Millennials like my partner, Milo Rivera, my champion racer, no? Ang aking bunso, to, brace yourself and let's hear interesting, wonderful stories from the masters themselves of motorsports, no? Yung mga stories in the not so distant past. Wag naman yung distant past, no? Not so distant past. Let's hear it from them at napagsama-sama po namin sila. So later on, we will be with them live here on Manila Standard PH Facebook page. But for now, Milo, let's have the top three stories of the week for Manila Standard on the road. For the first story, we have auto industry sees slow growth amidst the import curbs. The proposed safeguard measures on imported vehicle will shed at least 10% of projected sales over the next 5 years. Naku, 10% ito based on a recent industry study. Based on the slides presented by Kia President Manny Alegado, the Philippine auto industry while sustaining growth, will take a slower path to recovering its pre-COVID-19 performance under an auto safeguards regime. Alejandro said, Kia Motors Philippines is optimistic for 2021 prospects despite the impending imposition of safeguard measures on auto imports. Naku, ayan, medyo may measures na ang government natin. The car company currently has 1% share of the local automotive market. In 2020, nagplans siya over 50%. Wow, sobrang baba. And it is banking on the introduction of two new models that it plans to bring within the second half of 2021 to recoup the sales and possibly another two models if sales are good. Yon, Milo, naku, talagang pahirapan ang auto industry natin ngayon during this pandemic.
Totoo yan. Pero let's shift to more good news. For the second round naman, before that, Randy, good evening. Di pa kita nag-greet ng good evening ngayong gabi.
Good evening, partner.
Yeah, good evening to all of our viewers and listeners. Tonight, yun nga, sabi ni Randy, very, very interesting ang ating episode ngayon kasi we will be taking all of you guys back to nostalgic times in Philippine motorsports. Very nostalgic, back down memory lane nga, kumbaga. Yet anyways, on to our second news bit for tonight. Now, oil price slash are likely. Buyers may get relief. Consumers can expect a reprieve from the successive oil price hikes this month, with the expected oil price rollback of about 20 centavos per liter this week. Tama yan, mga viewers, di naman tataas ulit ang mga prices ng gasolina at diesel natin. Mukhang bababa na. Now, Unioil Philippines informed the public on its weekly price forecast to expect fuel prices to go down next week, January 26 to February 1, wherein diesel should go down to about 10 centavos to 15 centavos per liter, while gasoline should go down to about 15 to 20 centavos per liter. The country's oil firms have been adjusting pump prices weekly, and consumers have been experiencing 3 consecutive weekly oil price increases for the month of January. Now, the U.S. Energy Information Administration reported on Friday that oil consumption will grow in 2021 because of both economic growth and a return to more normal travel patterns by the end of the year. So ayan, good news yan. Bababa na sana ng totoo ang ating mga presyo ng mga gasolina at diesel para naman makapag-imbak na naman tayo. Can you hear me, Randy?
Okay, Milo, hindi ko naririnig yung audio mo, but okay, to continue, yung motorists natin, no? Ngayon, they are up in arms over LTO private vehicle na bagong sistema nila, itong vehicle tax nila. So what is this? Motorists, along with clean air advocates and the volunteers against crime and corruption, pumasok na rin ng VACC. On Monday, slammed the Land Transportation Office and the Department of Transportation for the arbitrary implementation of the Private Vehicle Inspection Center, or ito yung PMVIC System for Car Registration. So ito yung bagong sistema ng LTO tsaka DOTR, no? At a news conference in Quezon City, Hilario Pitpit of the Clean Air Movement of the Philippines Incorporated backed the call of Senator Grace Poe that thorough and wide-ranging consultations must be conducted involving all stakeholders to discuss the PMVIC system under LTO Memorandum Circular 2018-2058, no? That require motorists to pay 1,800 for a motor vehicle inspection as the directive did not undergo a thorough public consultation. Ito nga daw, parang basta na lang nilatag nila, walang consultation sa publiko. Volunteers Against Crime and Corruption and hundreds of motorists held a simultaneous noise barrage by blasting their vehicles' horns to dramatize their protest against the allegedly exorbitant fees being charged by the private motor vehicles inspection center to vehicle owners. Ako, masyadong malaki to. The group also called for a Senate inquiry against the LTO and the PMVIC not only on the unreasonably fees but also on the legality of the center to operate without the approval of Congress and the President. The memo also says motorcycle and tricycle owners will have to shell out 600 for the inspection fee. A inspection fee of 900 will be charged if a 4,500 kilogram fails the initial inspection. While for tricycles and motorcycles, the re-inspection fee is 300. Alam mo, masyado na nga mabigat to, partner. Itong mga exorbitant fees na ito ng LTO, no? Kaya nagrereklamo itong VACC tsaka yung Clean Air Advocates. Actually, kasama nila yung ibang motorist dito. No?
Actually, marami mga nangyayaring mga issue now.
Yan ang ano eh.
Oh. Narinig mo ba ako, Randy?
Partner, hindi ko madinig yung ano mo. Yung audio. O sa akin lang?
Hello, hello.
Sa akin lang ba?
Narinig mo ko?
Continue, partner. Hindi ko lang madinig.
Ayan.
Baka sa akin.
Ayan. Baka sa'yo lang, Randy, pero yun nga, to add to what you said, maraming ang issues na that have been involving LTO for quite a while, lalo na yung MVIS na bagong patakaran sa pagrehistro ng mga kotse. So we'll just see how the developments go from there. Like katulad nga nitong PMVIC. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our news roundup for tonight, January 27, 2021. When we return, makakausap na natin ang mga nakababatang mga guests natin as they talk to us about how motorsports used to be. And we will also be talking about motorsports today, and they would also compare competition, community, and the likes when we return. So don't go away. We'll be back after a very, very quick break. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. It's, like I said, napaka-ikli lang ng ating break kasi excited na tayo na makausap ang ating mga guests. Now, as mentioned, motorsports has had a very rich history. Throughout the years, we've hosted numbers of Grand Prix and have had a good amount of champions locally and who've also won in the international stage as well. At iba sa kanila, makakausap natin ngayong gabi para mapag-usapan naman natin ang motorsports noon kumpara sa motorsports ngayon. Meron tayong representative from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. At even up until now, they're still active in the sport. So again, we will be talking to them right now. And si Randy ba ay okay na? Well, anyways, our apologies for the technical difficulties. But without further ado, let me introduce to you our guests for tonight. We have Mr. Francis Kikong de la Rama, Louis Ramirez, Mike Potenciano, and Roland Hermoso. Good evening, mga tito.
Hi.
Hello,
Good
hello,
evening.
Hi, good
hello.
evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, hi.
Thing.
I think Roland has yet to catch up. I think I heard nasa dinner daw siya eh. But I think he can just enter the broadcast anytime. So while Randy's still fixing his speakers, I think, or his laptop, we can get started. And then I think I think ano daw, nag-text sa akin si Roland, he's inside the broadcast daw. So let's just wait. Ayan.
Ayan. Hi, boys!
Hi.
Pa-
Hello.
Alright.
para nawawala ako dito ah. Mga millennials tayo dito ah.
Mara- All right,
Teka
sige.
lang.
Anyways, good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight. We'll be having a good
Si
and
Kiko.
interesting talk with all of you as we
Kita
reminisce
ka.
on motorsports, Philippine motorsports at that. But before anything, may we ask the guests to introduce themselves or reintroduce themselves. I'm sure the people listening and watching us tonight have a very very good idea on who you guys are. I'd be surprised kung di nila kayo kilala. So let's start with the youngest of the group siguro. Tito Kikong, good evening. How is it there in Bacolod?
Hi, Milo. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, all loud and clear, loud and clear.
Yeah.
Um,
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good
Thank you
evening.
for having me.
yeah.
Uh,
Uh, and Tito, for the benefit of our viewers and those listening tonight, um, can you please remind everybody who Francis de la Rama is?
no, I'm just no, I'm Francis de la Rama. I'm from Bacolod, and I started racing during the late 70s. 77, 78, 79. That's how I started. And well, during those days, like we were students, like back then, I was just a college student studying at De La Salle. And you know, during that time, life was so simple. No, like when I started racing, um, you know, I was fortunate that people like Dante Silverio, Pocholo Ramirez, Arthur Tuason, you know, they welcomed me. Since I started when I was 19 years old, and back then it was just like I just love driving. Like I didn't know anything about cars. It's just the thrill of being able to drive then was something. Like that time, like the uh, when we started, like we were just like a family. Like as I mentioned earlier, Arthur Tuason welcomed me. Pocholo was Ramirez used to be my mentor, and Dante, Dante Silverio before being the most popular, no? As far as sports was concerned. Like he was a basketball coach. He was a leading race car driver at the time, and uh, like I cannot forget first time, um, like since like I'm from Bacolod, no, and well, uh, racing before I used to look up, but they were my idols, like during the time I remember, like it was just like a dream to be able to compete. But I maybe I was just lucky enough to be able to join races with them. Before I used to watch them, especially during the BF, the circuit at BF Homes, and and uh, the Maya rally before used to be, it was more of uh, I up to now, I don't believe I cannot believe that I was able to join, and Milo,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yes. All loud and clear. No problem.
Okay, good, good. Anyway, uh, those were the days, no? And I was very
Grabe.
able to join that. I was 19 years old. Then, I was. I don't know. I cannot describe the feeling right now.
A long career it was indeed, Tito. But yeah, yes, you mentioned one of the people who introduced you to racing was the great Pocholo Ramirez, and we have tonight one of his sons at that, Tito Louis. Good evening. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Siguro, my first question to you is being the son of a great champion and being a son of someone who is emulated throughout the course of Philippine motorsports, even up until today. Um, was it
Choppy.
instant love? Hello, hello, hello. Choppy. Naghang. Nawala. Sige, we'll get back to Louis in a bit. But before that, Mike, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Yep.
Um,
Evening.
throughout Philippine
Yan,
motorsports,
may age
ano
na
eh,
lang.
we'll get back to you, Tito Louis. It's okay. It's okay. We'll get back to you. But yeah, to Mike, um, throughout motorsports, the trademark name of MP Turbo has been heard almost all around the country. And when they speak of MP Turbo, they speak of Mike Potenciano. Now, for the benefit of our viewers and listeners as well, how did it all start? How did MP Turbo start?
Nako, kailangan natin ng more than 1 hour, Milo. So, generally, you know what, I'm just happy to note that, we started in 1983. And yung pala, si Kikong is just a few years ahead of us, ha, Kikong? And I think na ano lang tayo, Kikong, we were just separated because of that global fuel crisis in 1979 when
Exactly.
all the motorsports was shut down. no? And sila, ayan, I know Louis will confirm that even his dad, Dante, had to all go abroad to race because there was nothing here, no? So I think yun where we were lucky that 1983 Milo, Randy, we were already slowly getting motorsports back, but then we had to use Alcogas, and Alcogas, in fact, at the start it was supposed to be pure alcohol. So it was really something that during those days in the 80s, you just couldn't make the car run unless it was maybe a drag car. Na-explain siguro ni Francis, baka sa kanila pwede pa dati.
Right.
So generally, we started there, and then from onwards up to now, I think we raced in a lot of disciplines and in international events, and we're very happy to note na partner, everyone out there, nasa 37 years na in the racing pa rin. We just raced last time sa endurance racing Clark with Congressman Charlie Cohangco's team, the CAD team, and Anthony Antolin, and we were able to win pa that time. So we're very happy to note that we're all here. We're still present, from Kikong, who's still racing up to now, I know, and Louis and Roland is already a team manager nandyan, no? Talagang building up the next batch of champions.
Yeah.
So very happy to note na we're all still here. We're still alive, guys.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's nice to know na after all is said and done, everybody is still active in the sport. May involvement pa rin kahit paano, whether it's as a competitor, as a manager, as a coach, or as a tito, or a father to the next generation. Speaking of next generation, I go back to you before your internet was cut a while ago, Tito Louis. Kiko was able to mention a while ago that one of the guys that introduced him to the world of Philippine motorsports is your dad. Knowing that Coach Olo Ramirez, or your father, that has been someone who's been emulated by every single motorsport guy here in the Philippines, respected at that. Growing up, was it easy? Was it an instant love for the sport, or it took some time for him to convince you to follow his footsteps also? Wala eh.
Well, for me, it wasn't. I was the last one to get into it. Kasi naubusan na eh. Hand me third child, no? So when it got to me, wala nang kotse. Ubus. But it wasn't. He never forced us. He never forced us to get into it. But it's not genetics. My dad used to say it's not genetics, it's osmosis. From ever since I was a child, the talk on the dining table was racing. I didn't know how to drive a car yet. I knew that it's out, in, out, slow in, fast out, the racing line. I didn't know how to drive. Because in the 70s, a lot of, whenever there was a big race here, in those days, the racers weren't too, how do you say, picky. They would come, we would house maybe one or two drivers at our house to save them from, hotel bills or whatever. Everybody was kind of on a smaller budget. So the community was really small. So I guess as a child, but I was the last one to join. Even my younger brother joined, Miguel. He started racing before me. I only started racing cars in 98, I think.
Yes.
I tried some go-karts when I was younger. But then the cars, parang that period when there was no racing, you could only race abroad. So there's Kuya Cookie, Kuya George. They go first, di ba?
Yeah.
But as soon as we had a venue, I was able to start. So I was actually the last of the brothers.
Nice. Ay,
But
ayan.
Kikong, I remember very well my dad saying, this this kid's gonna go smooth as silk. He's not. He keeps his emotions in check, and that was very very impressive.
Nawawala.
Allah.
Nawawala na naman.
Yeah, I guess so. Singing muna ako eh. I have my music.
Yes.
Yeah. Right po. Now, turning our attention to our fourth guest for today, Roland, who started motorsports at the later decade when things were more organized. There were more events. There was more advertising value into the sport already. Somehow, Roland, good evening. How was
Good
it for you?
evening,
Naman?
Milo.
I don't think there was any was there any family influence when you started motorsports, or nahatak lang ng kaibigan, or paano ba nagsimula?
Good evening, no? Good evening, everyone. Yeah, of course. My brother Robbie was a very instrumental person in my life, especially when I started go karting. He introduced me into go karts, so well, kumbaga, by accident, I got into racing. Lang talaga. I didn't know I had the talent. I thought I was just going to have fun. Then, I remember my first few races, syempre si Kuya Mike. Si Mike pala nandun. Sorry hindi na Kuya Mike. Si Mike was there also, of course. Then, these are the guys that I looked up to, especially, syempre, sila Louie, I mean their family. And ganyan. Si Kiko, I don't know if you remember me, Kiko, you helped us in Go, and my first trip in Bacolod sa go-kart. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember.
I wouldn't forget how you guys helped us. We felt like stars when we went to Bacolod. So, without also, syempre, MP Turbo was very big that time. Si Mike was the one who was helping us. Well, he was the one organizing the races nationally. So, my racing career really started with karting, then moved into well, luckily moved into touring car, then and again luckily moved into Formula Toyota. Then the picture goes that I went to F3, and after that was well, before I really had my all my enrollment, my schooling in, of course, the gastos of my parents in go kart. But after go kart, I think I could say smooth sailing. Thank you for my sponsors, syempre. Sila Johnny, which was very instrumental to start on my karting, and sila, of course, si Eddie Peña, Standard Insurance, sila Jutsu Chaos, so to name a few. So I could say we were not in the same. Si Mike din, siyempre nagkaabutan kami hanggang F3. Si Louie, nagkaabutan na tayo sa Anduwi. Hindi maalala eh. si Cookie, si George, di ba, he tried F3 rin for a time. So, well, I ended up my career in F3. Then now, thanks to the Avengers, through Costco Oben, I was introduced to the Avengers, Bios, and the V1 team of Costco Oben. So now I'm a team manager, team coach like Louis. So at least tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang involvement sa motorsports.
Yes, yeah. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody, all our guests here kind of started at different years, but somehow one way or another, nagkakasalubong lahat, nagkakakilala lahat kasi it's such a very very intact community. And everybody, although everybody is competing against each other, nagtutulungan pa rin at the end of the day and share good laugh and some stories along the way. And speaking of stories, we'll start going back down memory lane a little bit further with you, Kikong. We were talking about those illegal races backstage before the show. Yung iba sa mga guests natin hindi alam yun eh. Kasi illegal daw eh. But what were the stories and of what were the motorsport stories that you could recall of during those days?
Yeah. Milo, during the time, during 77, 76, 77, we look forward every Friday. You know where Makati Avenue is? That was the drag strip of Makati. No? You'd see people everywhere. We used to have, if I remember right, there was a pancake house there. San Lorenzo was there. Then there was a Caltex gasoline station. Then there was a Rizal Theater. Then the PLDT building. And that was the drug strip then, no? It was full of people, you'd see cars all over the place, like the parking lot of, I don't know, Louis, do you remember? Lou? Mike? Do you remember?
Yung mga drag racing before?
The illegal drag racing.
The illegal.
Yung iba nagde-dead mo, hugas kamay. Kunwari, walang alam.
I'm curious to watch you guys lang.
The police.
Usually, ang generation malalaman mo kung saan sila una nagkita-kita for those cruising.
Police used to call it shakies.
Politically correct is cruising. Okay, Friday night cruising. Okay? And yung Friday night cruising na yun, inabutan pa namin was Makati Avenue. Can you imagine? Makati Avenue only had one, yung Rizal Theater, yung Shakies.
Then remember
yun lang.
Court?
Oo, and then wala na talaga. And can you imagine yung Ayala Avenue, corner Makati Avenue, that is part of the quarter mile. So grabe.
Those were the days, like imagine during the time it was still martial law.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, I mean, amazing. It was just amazing. I know, Mike.
Yeah. Talaga, and when I hear nga yung mga days nyo, Kikong, yung before pa, I think dun sa Fast Lane book of AAP, it traced there that drag racing, yung flat, using the Santa Ana race track, yung sa mga kabayo for dirt racing, and everyone was on muscle cars. Talagang those were the days, no?
Yeah. So, yun nga, well said, Tito Mike, those were the days.
Yes.
Pero I'm sure, yung ibang mga kinikwento ni Kikong about the illegal drag races back then, the cruising, so to speak, na medyo a lot of people would want to try to pretend that they don't know anything about it because syempre illegal eh.
Yes.
Illegal eh. But siguro to add to that, Tito Kikong, after those, your earliest account of organized motorsports at that, what was your car? who really got you into it, like you mentioned a while ago, and how was it at first? How was racing at first back then?
Uh, well, back then, like, why rally? I grew up here in Bacolod, and I learned how to drive in the farm. So it was all dirt road, you know, all around the farm, and so that's how we learned. We learned the hard way, you know. Uh, we wrecked a few cars, no, and when I went to Manila, 1976. I didn't have a license yet. I was underage, and 1977, on my 18th birthday, um,
Can you
Dad
watch
bought
it?
me
Shut.
a Mitsubishi Lancer.
Mhm.
That L type, remember?
Yes, the L type. Yeah.
Uh, so I remember my, before I forget, no? I used to race with your brother Binky. Remember the
Oh. Oh,
hills?
okay.
The
I
Zoom is
remember
fun.
that was my first rally. That was
Yeah,
my first.
but when it's snowing,
Um, During
But
that
nobody
time,
talking when I'm talking.
yeah, nobody's
it was a
using
private
it here.
here, and you know, I was just there to have fun and just to drive. Like I remember, I my friends and my cousins, like my navigator before was Mark Lopez. He was my second cousin, and so we didn't know anything about rallying. Like remember those Halda meters, how to calibrate those things and everything. We used to go to a shop wherein those taxi shops before, wherein they calibrate the taximeters, no? But during the time, I think Avco or something had that. Was it Avco or so we would have it calibrated, and during the time it was not digital yet. Those numbers, the small numbers in front of you, and so that's how we started. No? I remember the starting line before was in I don't know if you guys remember Makati Autocycle. It was in somewhere Buendia and Pasay Road then. That's how it. That's how we started. Um, I remember uh, a few days before the race, I flipped the car. That Lancer mismo, I flipped it. Because like I had a sponsor then, one of the owners of a gas station, gave me a set of those. I don't know whether it's BF Goodrich or Goodyear, those Cargador tires. Uh, those tires were for mga Ford Fiera before, di ba? Uh, so I tried because like 100 Hills Rally was somewhere in Reynolds, Cavite, no, then. And I was practicing, and bigla na lang, like, the I have a flat tire, you know. The tires was just separated from the rims, and the car flipped. And so, like, so I told myself, no, uh, maybe it's not meant. It's not meant. And some friends like Mark Coanco, um, Eric Montinola, they lent me parts.
Oh.
Like the whole differential was lent by by Mark. The front suspension came from a Galant, a 76 Galant. Yeah, so it's medyo heavy duty na. Then the setup was a 1400 Mitsubishi Lancer. No. Then we had uh, Cam 4, I think, and a single 45. Then
Okay,
we
na.
didn't have any filters. What we did was, like a cousin of mine just plays yung stockings pang babae. And that's, during the time, gas was around 45 centavos. 45 centavos. No? Remember those days? Then
How,
I entered the race with only, would you believe, 180 pesos in my wallet. Because then I was living on allowance. I used to get, I used to borrow the allowance of my sister. Then, so, you know, those were the days I remember. And then I met the Nodalos team. Um, Nanay Paz, Paz Nodalo, was from Negros. So, of course, she spoke the dialect. And I had my roll cage and the mounting for the rally lights from Nodalos. So back then, you know how much a roll cage cost then? I think 800 pesos during the time. Um, and I remember I was when 100 Hills rally started. I was car 33, and when I got to the starting line, it was Butch Viola who was the MC. And he goes, "Hey, what happened to your car? It's all UP and everything." And I said, I just, I didn't know what to say except, I just wanted to try the roll bars, and it worked. And the Dallas gave it to me for free. You know, uh, that was fun. That was fun. That was my first race.
no.
That was
So that was very, very, very enjoyable story to listen to, Tito. And you mentioned also a while ago na it didn't come easy.
yeah,
Improving,
yeah.
diba? It didn't come easy to get better, to perform again better every race. But at the end of it all, it was all worthwhile naman for sure. And look where we all look where
You
you are
know,
now, Tito.
Milo, winning before was beyond my dreams. No. What I wanted was just to drive and experience rally.
Yeah.
And I used to tell myself, I think what's important is to finish the race. No, you don't expect to win if you don't finish.
Yeah.
No, during the time, uh, the cars were stuck 1400, 1600. The highest was the Toyotas and the Ford Escorts 2-liter. Gemini were 1800, Uh, the first race, I had the 1400. I don't know, maybe the stock horsepower was only 104, 102 or something. But
Yes.
back then, what was important? What was important was durability.
Yeah.
No, the cars then were so simple, all normally aspirated, carb, and just reliable.
Yeah. Tama. Yun nga, you were mentioning kanina, all you had to do was finish and that already made your day, di ba?
Oh
But
yeah.
turning, thank you so much for that very, very beautiful story, Tito Kikong. Now, going back to you, to Louis, um, Tito Kikong mentioned it didn't come easy. So much learning, so much patching up to do as the races went by. For you, like we mentioned, Tito Poch, before you started racing, Tito Poch was already Tito Poch. And
Exactly.
even you also mentioned that you were the last one who entered the racing scene amongst the brothers. Um, Given that, was there any pressure involved? Like, okay, your brothers are winning. Your dad, Tito Poch, was already Tito Poch. How did the racing career of Louis Ramirez? Um, what were the expectations, rather, of being Louis Ramirez at an early age or during the early days of your of racing?
Well, no, I never got pressure from the family. Of course, there was no pressure. Of course, from others, they expect you to be. They think it's genetic. It's not genetic. Um, I started racing. Well, uh, karting, di ba? To have your first race, it doesn't matter. And nothing. Parang it's how do you say? It's a high.
Mhm.
Getting into the cart, getting ready, getting prepared, waiting for the lights. That whole that whole experience is is addicting, and nothing else matters.
Yeah.
So pressure, or if you didn't perform a little, yeah, there's that kind of pressure. But the the moment you get in the car, it's it's a whole different. I don't know how to explain it. It's like the the world doesn't matter.
Mhm.
It's just bringing that car to the limit and feeling the limit and experiencing the driving. And if you're lucky enough to be battling with somebody, then it's even more exciting. And I guess that's how I saw it. I never really saw it as I knew I couldn't. Dad was always like idol. The kuyas were kuya. So maybe inside you're like, I wish I could beat my kuya, but it wasn't a, it wasn't a thing for me. I didn't have to. There were a few times where I did, and I could use it to make kanchao, to make them kanchao, but um, the team was the family. So I think that also helped me develop really fast because
Mhm.
if teammates share information about setup, about the track, what what corners one is faster, what corners the other is faster. Teammates need to share if you want to get better. Both
Yeah.
and the whole team gets better. And
Yeah.
being in a family, it came naturally. There was no participation between the brothers of you know sharing information. So I guess I was lucky that way that the kuyas pulled me. But filling dad's shoes was never. I never thought of doing it. He's too. He's too. The stuff he used to do is crazy. Driving Macau, para in those days with posts. There were posts outside the wall, right, with sandbags, and they're like, he's making cuento that he's flat out, and he just has to hold his leg down so that he doesn't make bitaw. The stuff he used to do is like, man,
Those
with
were
the
those
safety
were
features. Then I don't know. I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I could do it.
great. That was amazing. And that yes, we'll skip it to Mike for a bit because I want to further extend this topic with with Roland. You mentioned a while ago, your kuya Tito Robbie actually started racing much earlier than you, and somehow or some way, um, the younger brother had to do it too. Um, what like the Louis mentioned there was no outstanding pressure naman to be better than the brothers or the father. For you, with Tito Robbie winning rallies as a navigator back then, and then you coming into the picture, pero hindi kayo nagkalaban eh. How was it like at home when you guys would talk about how your races will be?
With Robbie, you mean? Sorry, nag-cut
Yes,
kanina eh.
with Robbie. Yes, sorry.
Well, we had our little battle then during rally, but that time kasi I kami ni Edge nag-team up nun. I was his
Mm.
navigator. Robbie was the navigator of VIP. Navigator ni Edgel. So we had our battles then. That, hello? Hello? Naputol.
Internet is not our friend tonight.
Oo nga eh. Now pa nawala. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, better.
Yes,
Yeah, better. Better now? Yeah. So
yes.
there was a time that Robbie lent me a car. I remember it was a Honda Civic. Uh, I was already the driver. I had my navigator, si Garrett. Then Ejen has his own navigator. Nakakatuwa nun eh. So Robbie was with Vip. Ang labanan nun that time for championship kami ni Ejen eh. I won a rally overall. Ejen won 2 rallies overall. At the end of the season kami ni Ejen naglalaban. Kaya I could say I did a few rally myself, which actually is my first love. Kumbaga, circuit, I didn't know I had the talent with circuit. I thought I had more talent in rally. But eventually, the sponsors wanted me to do rally. Sorry, circuit. Uh, well, syempre kung saan, who would sponsor me more. So that's where I went. Eventually naman, happy naman ako. Syempre, I think that time getting to Formula 3 early 2000 was I'm pretty happy. I'm very happy that I achieved that. I never thought I would. Uh, so okay naman, okay naman. Si Robbie was always a mentor to me, but during times na we didn't, kumbaga, he stopped mentoring me for a time because he knew I could handle it on my own. And it's better then, di ba? I think ikaw, Milo, alam mo rin yan. Gusto mo, ikaw na lang mag-isip, wala na yung parents minsan.
At some
Diba?
point, tinuturuan ko si
Nakaka-pressure,
Stefan.
diba?
Oo, sobra eh.
Kayo magkapatid, okay. Mahirap
Oo.
pagkasama na yung mga alam mo
Mga
naman ibig sabihin
parental.
ko. Nanonood
Nanonood
yan.
ata sila ngayon eh.
For sure, sila Mike. Si Mike, walang pressure yan sa parents, kundi manood lang. Si Louie, well, I don't think you were pressured kayo ni Louie. Si Kikong, di ko alam. Sorry, si Kikong, di ko naging generation talaga eh. Si Kikong, nanonood pala ako sa rally nyo. Hawak-hawak ko pala kapatid ko sa mula pa atong kalahati mo eh.
I was just ahead.
Sorry.
I was just ahead a few years.
A few years. Oh, a few years.
Few years.
The last time kita nakita talaga, Kiko, I wouldn't forget in Bacolod. That was the time you helped us with. I remember getting gas.
Tuloy yung mga stories eh. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, our guests are multi-title drivers. They've won left and right, locally and internationally, and Mike Potenciano is no exception to that. That's for sure. So Mike, you just like our other guests, who have raced multiple disciplines like karting, rally, circuit racing as well. Turning our attention to you. You've raced all of those, and just like our other guests, have won in those disciplines. What could you say is your favorite discipline, or the discipline wherein that gave you so much learning, so much great experiences, so much stories as you went through with your career?
Yeah. Ako, definitely, karting was, because we were grade 1, really, and everyone should be there in karting. Why I said this, because when we started in rally in 1983. 2 years after, we haven't even finished a rally. So, sila Tommy Campos, Jody Coseteng, at saka si Robbie Luna. We all teamed up and we went back to karting. And that time, from then on, we started winning. In fact, we joined yung first international race namin in 1986 sa Hong Kong to Beijing. And right away, we got second in our class in Group A4, and using the Lancer Turbo, na 1800 and 8th overall. So that was a very big, and my navigator then was si Jojo Estrella. So that was a really big, memorable experience. So karting for me, it's always my love, my passion for to get everyone there and start from there. And then rally, definitely, we didn't have any racetracks then. We can only do rallies. So I think that one, up to now, we always post pictures about it. We always talk about it. So for the experience, the unforgettable memories, rally will be it. And but one more, yung sa formula, which is we reached yung AF 2000, which is a 2-liter open-wheeled one-make car and tires. So with using a Ford Z-Tech 2-liter, 170 horsepower. And yun, kaya lang, yung formula is a totally different animal. I got to race with Roland also in AF3. And but kaya ako nasabi yung AF 2000, one of the unforgettable moments rin, kasi it was the only time that I cried after a race because of a very, the last race, for me, we got cheated for the overall championship. We were leading, and then in the end, There were some, problems with the leaders getting bumped out because of they jumped the start. But there were a couple more that jumped the start, but they didn't apply the rule. And technically, the rule then, even FIA, it's in the rule book, you should give the penalty of a stop and go, no, in within 2 to 3 laps, but you don't let the race finish, and then you penalize someone. So that is, and because of that, we lost the championship by 1 point. Pero what's nice is we're still very good friends with the champions, Dennis Lian from Singapore. We're in the same team. So it's not between us. It was really about the organizer. So I think the whole thing, ang masasabi ko lang, motorsports, and I'm sure everyone will agree, is that it builds character. With all the problems that we went through, we lost our family company, Bill TV, and family problems, etc. Siguro a weaker person, one that hasn't gone into motorsport, siguro nagpakamatay na. So what here it teaches us to be, never to have this never say die attitude, never give up, and always rise again for another time, because we will never always win the race. We will have to try again. Yun lang. Okay.
Definitely. That will. Thank you so much for those, Tito Mike. Words of wisdom, words of encouragement, and all because of motorsports.
Yeah.
And for also sharing your memories and your great stories at that. Turning our attention back to you, Tito Louie. What can you say naman is, let's say, your most memorable story throughout your motorsports career?
Oh, I would have to say Macau, year 2000. It was the last leg of the AFOS of the Southeast Asian Touring Cars. And being the last leg, we had no more budget. But since you paid for the series, libre na. Libre na the entry fee. So, not only that, may kasamang kwarto libre. So, Dad said, yeah, go, run it, diba? So I was like, okay, I'll run it. I didn't have any tires. We were using Michelin slicks. So I went to all the bigger teams to see if they have yung old tires that can still be used. And they were saying, you're crazy. This is Macau. You're going to kill yourself, right? So I'm like, I don't know. I don't have budget. I just need tires to run. And long story, I wasn't in the Gia race because I was using a Civic. And it's the Civics are in a different race, right? It was the Macau Cup race. But 40 cars on the grid. I started maybe 39, I think. Beside me was Albert Poon at the back. And, well, I just, like Kikong was saying, you just finish. To finish first, you have to finish. So I just stayed on the track, and, you cannot practice in Macau. So at the start of the race, I wasn't sure about the track. They're all blind corners, and it was just survival. But my heart was in my throat. Some of those corners are really flat out. And I finished 11th overall. Happy na ako. Third in my class, 11th overall. But it was like, what an experience. What an experience. Just
Mm,
finishing was like, wow.
mm, yeah. Yun nga, so many
That
great
would be
stories.
my
Even that
most
would be your
memorable
story.
race.
Thank you so much. Ayan, even back in the day, there's so many stories that can be told, um, and how the Filipino, driver can just, make do with what they have and still do very, very well. But change topic naman tayo ngayon, going back to you, to Kikong. You've probably seen it all from the time you started motorsports, the time you be championship after championship, win after win, even concluding your career, and now your pamangkin, um, Jero is now racing from time to time. So somehow you're still involved in the sport. Siguro comparing racing back then to racing, what is racing now? What siguro can you say about the differences, how it is already, and if there's, would you say that it's better now, or the glory days were still those glory days?
And I would say it's better now. It's well organized. Back then it's different. Like, like when we would start a race, like, of course, the crowd was there. But right now, if you talk about like Clark and Batangas Racing Circuit, like at least um, it's well organized compared to what we had before. Circuit before, going around Green Hills, uh, BF homes, those were subdivisions. I mean, those were not really meant for racing.
But in terms of siguro participation, in terms of community, is there a difference back then compared to now?
You
I think
know, we had a smaller group before, like to give you an example, starting from Pocholo Ramirez, then we had George, and we had Cookie. See, Louis was still a baby then, and and uh, for the Ford team, like we used to have Boy Eusebio, Arthur Tuason, Danny Tuason, Raul Tuason, and of course, so the Toyota, we had Dante Silverio, Pocholo Ramirez. It was just a small, we were just like family, during the time. I, uh, we used to have like the Lee brothers before, Patrick and Jojo Lee. Imagine racing 280 SL then. That was something, Like then we had the Campos brothers, Butch and Tommy. Um, then did I forget? Of course, the Nadalos before. Um, then we had Paeng Nodalo, like uh, we were just we were competing against each other, but we were just like family. The Nodalo's team would invite me to eat with them. Arthur Tuason invited me to one time. He treated me for breakfast. I cannot forget that.
Um, so you mentioned a while ago na yun nga, the community was much smaller now compared to as it is now. Now you see drivers from everywhere, north, south, and so many disciplines also. Um, and I think it was also a good way of promoting motorsports more now that there are more enthusiasts, di ba? So yun, going to you, Tito Mike, after you stop racing, you still continue to be involved in the sport. You entered media, and you also entered organizing events. And kitang-kita nga natin doon sa backdrop mo, yung Rally of Champions and other events at that as well. Briefly share to us, the passion and the drive behind it, and how is it right now?
So, ako muna. Okay. Yes, okay. Sorry. Marami kasi sumasagot ako dun sa mga FB natin. Ang dami mga nanonood at saka nagko-comment. So, But, yeah, basically before, it was easier to organize events, no? Why? Because generally, sponsors were there. We were only a few event organizers then. And when you go, like when we bring the National Kart Series everywhere, local governments will support it, etc. No? But now, and we can close major roads, di ba? We can close the provincial capitals everywhere, in Bacolod, in Cebu, and even here in, di ba, Louis, in Manila, we had the Manila Grand Prix, Luneta, you can close. Talagang everyone wanted it, no? Pero ngayon parang, sad to say that motorsports has gone down, no? From its golden days. And it's now up to us, tayo, all the generations here, to bring it back again. And that is why we went to media, we went to we're doing events, motorsports events, and now with this pandemic we're doing online events also. So it's just not to and hopefully bring back nga the golden days. And the way I'm looking at it, no, Milo, you're also with AAP, is we can't do it without manufacturer support. We really need them to come back and support. I think that is why Louis also before, when we started Subic, di ba? Talagang bakbakan. We had you were with Nissan, we were with Mitsubishi, and then we went to Hyundai, di ba? And talagang carried cars, no? What they had in the showrooms, we would fight. Mazda came in after, so talagang Toyota was there, so ang ganda. So hopefully we can bring it back again, and slowly what we're doing now, we have this Rally of Champions series. It's the first series of its kind wherein we combine dirt and tarmac all at the same time in one series. Before, you would have only tarmac in one, you'd have the rallycross in one, but there was no such thing as combining those disciplines, no? Basically 10 disciplines into one series. So if you become the champion of the ROC, talagang supposed to be magaling ka, no? And talaga, kasi hindi lang yung different formats, but you should win on the same car. Okay? We provide the car pa. You just have to get yourselves there. Louis, Kikong, Milo, Roland, Randy sa media, lahat tayo pumunta. Ayusin natin ulit to, and let's make it big. Kasi, I still dream of having a Filipino up there in F1, in WRC, in all of these major sports. Winning Macau again after Doji Laurel's time. So, yun ang kailangan. And ang dami mga Pilipino magagaling. And we're very happy to note na talagang Milo tayo talon-talon na. Ito mga bata na to, ang gagaling na talaga. You know, we just had the endurance race, and these guys, you know, they're so fit, they're so fast, na after driving for 2-3 hours, they can do another 2-3 hours again. And they were, you know, on pace. They were so fast. So, I think talagang ang maganda, Filipinos are made for racing. This is a sport that we can excel, and as proven by you, Milo, you won the international Asian Gymkhana, and that is what we all, basically the inspiration we had for Rally of Champions, and we hope that we can, you know, have a leg here in the future, and pakita naman natin na magagaling talagang Pilipino.
Yeah, we completely agree with you on that, di ba?
Yes.
In the Filipinos are really good race car drivers, and all we need is the support.
Yes.
And we share your passion, we share your dream into making motorsports in the Philippines great again, or greater than it is now. So siguro we're down to our last two questions. Siguro for our last two guests, di pa sila naka-quota pa eh. But for you, Roland, after racing, you eventually turned into coaching and team managing. So from learning from the best, you're now mentoring, you know, tomorrow's best drivers. So the transition from that, from being a driver to a coach, how was it? You know, what pushed you to do that? And siguro looking forward, yung ano ba yung gusto mong eventually marating in terms of a certain driver's development, or the Filipino in general?
Well, actually, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, yeah, I accidentally became a coach until I was picked up by, as I said, Costco Oben through JV. Because there's a time that JV asked me to help him in Vios Cup. Then I got excited because, syempre, with all the racing career, 20 or more years that I had, like, it's good to pass down something that I learned, like what Mike is doing also, and Louis, of course, diba? So parang sinabi ko, okay, it's my chance. And I never thought na I'd be good at it. Or maybe I'm just lucky with the talent that I have, the pool of talent that I have. Especially Milo, your brother Stefano is an excellent example of someone na Mike was saying na Filipino who put racing sa map talaga. I mean, put the Philippines in the map when it comes to racing. Of course, Daniel Miranda, who's also part of the junior WTCs. Well, actually, it's TCR, but that used to be the WTCC. He's part of the junior Hyundai team. That's together with sila Sebastian Loeb, sila, well, di na si OJ, si OJ ba nandun? Sorry, I forgot. Basta with the Hyundai team. Actually, the Philippine has lots of talent. It's just really sometimes we need a little more financial backing. Well, para naman umasenso lalo. Well, what Marlon Stockinger did was fantastic. He used all his talent, all his, kumbaga, of course, the help of his parents. He went there to the top, and I'm very proud of what he has done. Especially now, during this time. What Pachola has done before was very hard to replicate. At least now we have new talent that has the backing also, like Daniel, to move on to higher grounds. Except now with COVID, so I don't think we'll be doing any international races this year. It's going to be hard with quarantine.
Ayun. Thank you so much. Somehow a similar question goes to Tito Louie, and siguro probably the last question for the night. Just like Roland, you entered coaching as well, getting yourself involved in the Vios Cup with Tuason Racing as a coach, and also managing the team drivers somehow. How's the experience like compared to, you know, the feeling of driving? If you were to choose between the two, what would you pick? And siguro the last question is, how do you see Philippine motorsports going from here on out?
Well, like Roland, sorry, accident. No, I never, I never thought that I'd be able to teach. It 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 came it was a bit difficult in the beginning to express myself. So I just tried to remember what my dad used to tell me and how he used to do it. So that's how, I mean, you learn slowly, but teaching was not part of the plan. You asked me, uh, JP gave me that break on the Vios, so I was able to harness more of the teaching skills. Diba? I was a very bad student. So that you asked me whether I want to be in the cockpit or teaching. Of course, the cockpit still calls you, but I can get I can get excited. I can I can get excited teaching. I've learned how to um, you know get what's the word? Get a thrill or accomplishment from seeing your student learning something, because very difficult in racing. It's very mental, and with the young ones, it's very their emotions are still
All
very
over the place.
wild. So keeping head is very important. And what's the last question?
How do you see motorsports
Where
going?
in Philippine motorsport?
Yes.
Well, motorsports in general, all over the world, has gotten more and more expensive. So we needed the backing then, and they're gonna need more backing now. So the only thing we can do locally is to train the driver, because racing, no matter what form, there are certain things that you need to know, your mind, smoothness, and those things you can learn at a lower level. That's the only thing we can do without uh, corporate backing. It's expensive, but like if we do what Mike's things, train them any discipline. It doesn't matter. It's the competition. Keeping your head, diba?
Mm.
That's the dream of my dad. It's been all our dreams ever since. With the in the olden in Kikong's days, it was easier to go international. I mean, it was more accessible. The peso was stronger, but yeah, I'm definitely with Mike. We need to build the talent. That's why I'm a
Yeah.
teacher.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you so much for that, and thank you so much to all our guests for sharing so much of your stories, of your experiences, and also of your wisdom. Yun nga, Randy, sabi nga ni Mike sa chat box natin sa backstage na overtime na tayo ng gusto sa dami ng kwento eh. And we could even go for a much longer time pa with all the stories they have. And ano pa yan, it's just a portion of yun, the richness of the history of the Philippine motorsports. So yun, Randy, anything you'd want to say to end this episode? Yun nga, hindi na tayo nakapagsagot ng mga ng mga tanong ng mga viewers natin sa comment box sa Facebook.
You know, in this very rare occasion where you have the four of the best and brightest drivers, no, the masters and legends of motorsports, I really enjoyed taking the backseat and happily, happily watching Milo getting into the minds of the best and brightest ng motorsports. For all I care, Milo, gusto mo talagang makuha yung mindset ng mga four legends natin. So how can you lose in the future?
Actually, at this age, nagtuturo-turo na rin ako eh. Turo-turo ng pagkain, hindi driver, pagkain.
Legend na rin yan, si Milo.
I enjoyed watching from the sideline you doing this thing, Milo. I'm relaxed. I'm happy.
Sarap ng buhay mo dun eh.
You enjoyed it, huh?
Yeah, it was fun. It was great talk.
Kuwari pa si Randy, technical problem siya eh.
Hindi na nakasalita eh.
Ayun. So, yun, take it away, Randy, and thanking our guests for everything they've shared, and hope we could talk to them again. Sa totoo lang, marami pang pwedeng pag-usapan, and we could do it anytime. Probably even next week, we'll never know. But for now, thank you so much. Yun, Randy, take it away.
Yes, let's do this again, guys. No? Thank you very much for staying with us, ladies and gentlemen, mga Gen Xers, mga millennials. We'll see you again next Wednesday, no? For more here on Manila Standard on the Road. God bless everyone. Keep safe.
Thank you.